we're going to talk about the UFL. Feels like a very great segue into this topic. And why is the UFL special? I think that's kind of where you start this thing. And for first of all, of course, we're talking about the small school guys, right? We're talking about the D2, the D3, the NAIA guys. They maybe didn't crack it at the NFL level. A lot of these guys, maybe it was their first opportunity or first chance to try and get into a mini camp or to sign a UDFA deal type of situation. But it's also a great chance for the pro bounce backs of the bigger institutions, right? Think your Max Duggins, your Taco Charlton, your Matt Corral. But also, we talk about those small school players. It's a great blend of all these guys, right? Some of those names that I just mentioned, you probably had heard of playing at their larger respective Power 4 type institutions. Maybe at the time, Power 5, depending on, where they came out of, and when. But I think it's a great blend of that, and people kind of see it as maybe that quote-unquote feeder league to the NFL, and I certainly could see that kind of perspective. I totally get that, because for the vast majority of these guys, that is still the end goal, is playing in the NFL. But the UFL is a great opportunity for guys who still get to go play professional football, put up on this pedestal. They're playing on Fox. They're playing on ESPN, all these deals. And it's a very high-level competitive scene that, no knock against the CFL or indoor league or maybe playing overseas. It's just not quite the same. The UFL is right in the NFL's backyard. You're not necessarily dealing with some of the rules and limitations of the Canadian League concerning how many Americans you can have on the field or on the roster. And some of those instances, the competitive scene maybe overseas, not quite up to snuff with what the UFL has to offer. So with the USFL and XFL merging, feels like there is a lot of momentum for the UFL to have some real staying power here in the coming 5, 10, 15 years. Because if you remember very recently, when the XFL made their return back in 2019, probably 2018, somewhere along those lines. And I guess it actually would be probably closer to like 2020 because it would have got shut down. But they had some real momentum going into the pandemic. They had some real momentum, and I thought the XFL was actually set up for some success. Of course, COVID-19 shut that whole parade down, but it feels like a lot of those same ideas and starting to reinvigorate that fan base. People who really, truly love football, people that know ball, are watching the UFL. I have myself turned into a few games. Can't say I've been an avid watcher of every single one. I'd be lying to y'all, but I have tuned into some games, especially to watch some of these guys try and go out there and compete, and it's been a fun product. It's been a very fun product. The way they enhance the broadcast and kind of display things in a different light has been really exciting. So let's get into talking about the small school players playing in the UFL, and we're going to start with what I think is probably the most recent signing of the bunch, and that being the incredible running back out of Virginia Union, Jada Byers, signing with the Memphis Showboats. Byers was the CIAA Offensive Player of the Year. He ran for over 2,000 yards and 27 touchdowns last season for Virginia Union. The Panthers had an incredible year, the best in program history. And this man in the offensive backfield was, to be honest with you, to be very blunt, he was a big reason for why that actually happened. So kudos to Jada Byers and what he's done for that program at the Panthers, and he will certainly make the most of what he has going on in Memphis. So let's move on, talk about a bunch of the small school football products playing in the UFL. We dropped this thread on Twitter. I refuse to call it X. We dropped this thread on Twitter the other day, shouting out some of these guys. So let's go through this list and talk about some of these players. Starting things off, the Saginaw Valley State product, that being Nick Whiteside. He's going to join the Battle Hawks in St. Louis. He was the GLIAC Defensive Back of the Year, first-team All-Conference selection, second-team All-American, and he previously was with the Washington Commanders in the NFL. And this is a guy that I got to see in person, playing at Northern, being in the conference. Lockdown, the type of dude that shuts down one side of the field. The quarterback has no option to go over there at all. So shout out to Nick, being able to see him in person. Had a stint in the NFL with the Commanders. Now will certainly make the most of it in the UFL. Let's switch to the other side of the ball. Xavier Malone from Henderson State, and he didn't start his career as a Ready over there at Henderson. He transferred to Henderson after 2 seasons at Northeast Mississippi Community College, and then after some great standout years with the Reddies down there in the GAC, he was a UDFA with the Atlanta Falcons. UDFA, for those of you not familiar, an undrafted free agent, someone they go out and acquire typically after the draft process is already over. Very common for some small school products to be lumped into that sum. So, had a stint with the Atlanta Falcons. Now, moving on to the Michigan Panthers, where you see he's getting some PT with them. And I believe he's involved, obviously at wide receiver. I also believe he's involved maybe a little bit in the kick return game and some of the special teams aspects of what they have going on there with the Panthers. Let's go over to the defensive side now. Matt Gotel from West Florida. The Argonauts hell of a program, a very recent, in the grand scheme of things, upstart of a program. Matt won a national championship with the Argos in 2019. This is actually his second stint with the Brahmas out of San Antonio after being drafted to them in the 2023 XFL draft. So before the two leagues merge, he was originally drafted to the Brahmas, went back to the NFL, had a couple stints with a few teams in the NFL, and now has come back to the now rebranded UFL, still playing for the Brahmas. So kind of a neat story, and I would assume there's got to be some staff members and other people who were probably still there in his first go-around with the squad. So kind of an interesting deal there for Matt. We just had him on the show. You guys heard from him, Thomas Burke. I will kind of leave it at that. We talked with Thomas earlier today. The tight end out of the College of New Jersey has all the physical attributes that make up a professional tight end. And whether it was playing D3, D2, whatever the division was, you can't coach what this guy has. He talked about it, some of his leverage, his length, what he's able to do when the football is not in his hands, right? That's what makes him a really prominent pro prospect. He's with Memphis Showboats and actually have very similar color scheme to TCNJ there, which is kind of fun. But he's with them and certainly will make the most of his opportunity. Let's keep going down the list, though. From Frostburg State, talk about Niles Scott, who will be playing with the Defenders. Niles, he first came to the NFL as an undrafted free agent out of Division III because Frostburg, I guess I kind of learned this actually just recently, made that transition to D2, I want to say in, I don't know, somewhere in that like 2020, early 2020s type of deal. Like it's a very recent move from D3 to D2, or 2018. He came out of, out of Frostburg State, signed with the San Francisco 49ers. He was an All-American, named to the D3Football.com All-East Region Defensive Player of the Year. Quite the mouthful. All that to say, was an incredible player in college at the D3 level. The school has now since transitioned over. He'll be playing for the DC Defenders. Moving along. Well, you'll notice there's a lot of Panther players on this list. They must have something for the small school guys. The second Cardinal on this list out of Saginaw Valley, that's Nate McCrary, the running back from SVSU, was a first-team All-GLIAC selection. He ranks 4th on the SVSU career rushing touchdowns all-time list, and he had stints with many NFL teams, starting in Baltimore, now with the Panthers out of Michigan in the UFL. This guy has certainly shown his pedigree in the NFL, and while he maybe hasn't cracked through quite yet and made the kind of impact I'm sure he wants to, this will be a great opportunity for him to get back and compete on that level. Nate Wieland, an NAIA product out of Grandview. Again, a little bit of a different story for Nate, and they didn't go to Grandview right out of high school. There's a little bit of a different route for him. He originally signed with Iowa in the Big Ten out of high school. Slowed down by injuries, he transferred to Iowa Western Community College. From there, bounced back, went on to play linebacker at Grandview, had like 80 tackles in his last year there with the Vikings and really had a great season with them. Got his NFL start with the Patriots and now is in San Antonio for the UFL playing with the Brahmas. So an interesting journey for Nate, but keeping the football dream alive, keeping this thing going. Another GLIAC shout-out, this time, though, on the defensive line, I do believe. Sorry, had to get my things mixed up here. The defensive line, Dennis Johnson from Grand Valley State is a first-team All-GLIAC member. Was the GVSU Defensive Lineman of the Year. He makes the transition, the former Laker, playing for the Defenders in that front defensive 5 there in the UFL. And then from Missouri Western, we have Keith Russell. Let me find my notes here on Keith. But going from Missouri Western, once again, another pickup for the Panthers. An offensive lineman. He was an all-MIAA selection for the Griffins. Big part of their success. This is when the Griffins were a top 25 team in the country at the time. Have since maybe not gotten back to that same pedigree, but he was a big part of that success offensively for that Griffins front. Keep things going from the CSP, former NSIC squad, now that has that moved out of that conference. But Chris Garrett, who is now playing for the Battlehawks. Let's see here. Set the NCAA Division II record for career forced fumbles with 15. He ranked 3rd in NCAA Division II history with 1.3 sacks per game. That's astounding. He's got over a sack per game, 3rd in NCAA Division II history. He was also a Cliff Harris Award finalist while playing for the Bears. So a great college career, and now hoping to continue that into the pros. Chris Garrett. Now, couple of Pitt State products here you'll notice. Kiante Hardin the first one for the Gorillas. Playing once again for the Panthers. He started his career actually at Minnesota in the Big Ten before transferring to Pittsburg State. Overcame an season-ending injury his junior year. Came back, had a standout season, and now is getting his chance in the UFL. So shout out to him. And as we keep going through this list, here's another Pitt State product right here in Markel Roby. The safety from Pittsburg State. He was a two-time all-conference performer at Briarcliff, an NAIA squad before Pitt State. He was involved big time in the kick return game for the Gorillas as well, so made his presence felt on special teams, something he has continued to contribute into his professional ranks. He had one real year at Pitt because of COVID, had a couple years of eligibility, but he played the whole 21 season. That's where he had his kind of breakout year, so to speak, and now is getting his shot in the pros. Blake Jackson is a really fun story. Now, Blake is a wide receiver right now for the Battlehawks, but he was a dynamic quarterback in the D3 world before making that switch offensively over to wide receiver. He's also played in the CFL and the Arena League, along with an NFL stint in Cleveland in 2019. But when he was playing for the Crew, for the Crusaders down there at UMHB, D3 All-American, he was the ASC Offensive Player of the Year and a national championship MVP that year. Man. Finished his senior season at Mary Hardin Baylor with over 3,500 yards passing, 36 touchdowns, and over 1,100 yards rushing with an additional 12 tuds on the ground. That's an incredible year for any type of quarterback, and for him to be able to make that switch athletically over to wide receiver certainly speaks volumes about his game. Another athletic D3 quarterback, Luke Lehnen, out of North Central, who we've talked about a lot on this show, going over to Arlington to play with the Renegades. In his college career, he ranked first nationally in passing efficiency and yards per pass. He threw at least 2 touchdown passes in every game of his senior season. Every single game had at least 2 tuds through the air. 196 of 283 passing was good for about 70% completion percentage for over 3,200 yards and 43 touchdowns. That doesn't even begin to get in what he was able to do on the ground with his feet, how he could block for his teammates downfield. We've seen some incredible clips of him doing that as well. But just know that that guy truly does it all on the football field, especially when it was down in the Cardinals right there. So to keep things going, I do believe we have a couple more here. And this one is one that I'm super excited about. Chim Okorafor, a guy who we had on the podcast way back when he was first getting his start coming out of Benedictine at the NAIA ranks. This is a guy that I'm super excited about. He actually transferred in from Pittsburg State, made a big impact with the Ravens, had a stint in the NFL, was with the Eagles, had bounced around a little bit trying to break through. He was an AFCA All-American and an All-Region player during his college career and has since been in the UFL. I believe this is his second stint playing in the USFL/UFL type of scene. He also, with the Michigan Panthers, feel like he is a guy that certainly is poised to make a breakthrough, and get back to that NFL scene. So hoping to have Chim back on the podcast soon. Really enjoyed talking with him last time, and he has just continued to impress. I believe I'm going to do a double check here. I think that's everyone, guys. That's a pretty incredible list. Sorry if I was going really quickly. Just wanted to get through all those and give them all their love while trying to keep this thing moving along. But an incredible list of guys who have all gone on to the next level and are playing professional football. I think all professional football needs to be celebrated on this show. So if I'm missing people or people that are playing in different leagues, whether that is European or indoor, arena, CFL, those kind of things, certainly would love to highlight them on this program. It's always just a matter of how much I know. Right? How much do I know going into it? It's really hard to aggregate and collect news at this level of football. You guys are all aware of that.